Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the BattlePlans podcast. So basically, if you haven't read the title, I don't know why you wouldn't, we're going to be seeing the Battle of Hastings reimagined, which is basically my take on what could have gone better at the Battle of Hastings. So mostly what Harold could have done better, obviously, since he lost. But I think the Normans could have done some things better too. But basically, if you don't know what the Battle of Hastings was, I'll just explain it to you real quick. Um, Here, let me. So the map right here, basically, this is Harold. These were the original English, and in the blue down here, these were the Normans. Normans came up from part of France, and they're gonna try to take over England. Harold had just come back from fighting off some Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, whatever. And so now his army is exhausted. They just try to form a shield wall, stay on top of the hill. Eventually, though, they think that the Norman leader has died, and so they break their position. But when they do, they immediately get surrounded by all of the Normans, and they lose the battle. And King Harold dies, and then England is taken over by Normans. So there's a brief rundown. So to start off with, what I think what the English could have done better, that's the guys in red here. King Harold, obviously, if they just held their position on the hill right here, it would have gone a lot better for them. They may have actually won. It would have been hard to win. Basically, they didn't have a lot of offensive power. It was mostly the Normans that had the offensive power. They had the French cav, and then they also had, I don't know where they are in this battle map. They also had some archers too. But since these guys were up on a hill, the archers had a very bad vantage point to shoot them from. So that was good for them. Also, the French cav, while they did have cav, the mounted men mostly had swords, which is weird. Some people think that cav normally has swords for some reason. They don't. Normally, it's things like spears, lances, long, pointy objects, because when you're on a horse, you're elevated, obviously, and this can be very hard for a sword to effectively reach an infantryman on ground level. So first of all, Normans could have brought cav with lances. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. So there we go. Again, also what they could have done is, now this is obviously all retrospect. Could have been reasons why they didn't do it. This is just my opinion, so yeah. Obviously there's a little river here, but what would have been effective for them to do is flank around here. Obviously these guys probably wouldn't have held their position if they're being flanked. Hopefully they would have, and I mean like circling around here, hopefully they would have had the sense to try to form like a box formation, right? That's usually pretty effective against spears, right? But when they form the box formation, what happens is, since most of the arrows were missing, they're going over the guys' heads because they had a bad vantage point. Now when the archers missed, they would probably hit some more guys back in the back line here. Also, they're more clumped up, easier target for archers. And when you don't want to do those cav charges, they're going to be all clumped up, which means that they're going to take more casualties. And if you're only attacking one side, there's less pointy spears and stuff. So that's what I would have done for the French. That's my main disagreement with how the battle was led on their part. They attacked like straight. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? For the English, well, it was a little different. It would have been harder for them to attack. They definitely wanted to stay up on this hill because they're heavy infantry. They have big shields. It was actually rumored that when people died in the shield wall, they would stay standing up because of how tightly packed they were, which is pretty crazy. What they could have done, I mean, it's really difficult for me to think of a situation in which these guys would win without incredible luck. These guys would have had screwed up really, really bad. What they could have done is, I would maybe a small detachment, because these guys in a line, obviously, you may be flanked a little bit if you're sending these guys away, but I would have sent at least some people in reserve, So you could have had a few people here, right, to protect you if people did flank around you. And then also, I feel like maybe they could have sallied out. Maybe they had some guys um, on the fringe side over here, right, that they sent out. So then, oh, they found a weak spot in the archers when the cav decided to charge up. Well, then they can just come around here and attack them. Like, we have no idea if it would work or not. But the premise is that it's going to be very hard for them to win standing in a straight line like this. And we have to think, would they even have wanted to be in a line? Because when you're in a line and there's cav, now I just said, okay, yeah, it'd be better for the cav if they were in a square formation, but I need to rethink that because actually they did not have spears. There was mostly swords. Well, not swords. It was mostly smaller weapons, not like large, long spears, whatever, pikes. You get the drift. So when they're in a long formation like this, and you can see that it's like two squares deep here, whatever that means, two formations deep here, they either could have thinned out the line like this, because you're not going to get much use out of a small one-handed or maybe a larger, like a smaller two-handed weapon if you're standing behind like three guys, right? And again, with the sword in your hand, it's just not effective. And again, with the tightly packed shield walls, yes, it would be good against these arrows. But the thing is, most of the arrows are already missing anyways. You definitely want to keep your shield up, but I feel like you would not want it to be that tightly packed. You'd actually want to be more loose and spread out, because if you're more loose and spread out, it's going to be harder for the cav to hit you. You're not just all blobbed up in this one shape, where the cav can actually do a ton of damage that way. So I would say spread out your line a little bit. Spread out your line, make it less deep. You can even split some guys up to be in reserves. You can see from this map, look, there are no reserves. They're all on the front line. All of them. There's no reserves. There's no force over here. There's no force over on their right either. I guess it would be their left. The Norman's right. The way we're looking at it doesn't matter. You know what? So yeah, stretch out your line and even put some guys over here. It may be vulnerable to being singled out, but if you're not having any attack power, you've already lost basically. Unless these guys do something stupid, unless they just decide to quit, which they didn't, it's going to be hard for them to. You can't win in a defensive position like this. So that's what I would do. I don't think there's anything else that I could really add. I mean, it's hard to really change up what you're doing or have a lot of different options when you're limited, like the English are, with only one type of infantry, basically. And that is shield in, small weapon. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you liked my look at the Battle of Hastings, and I will see you all later. Adios.